And the topic of regret is a very powerful one, no matter how you look at it. And I think we all live with a relationship to regret. Now, you may not all actively think you're feeling regret, but I think that regret covers all the categories of would've, could've, should've. Regret covers things we wished we did, were, or could yet be, things we could have done better. But regret is even bigger, right? Because I think regret is also caught up in the sadness we feel for life, for our world. And you might say, even though in the end I'm going to say regret is unnecessary on the mystical path, but you might say that if there isn't some regret in your life or in your heart or that you're exploring, then something's probably wrong. I mean, it's one of those interesting emotions because it has a function that I think is just maybe misunderstood. So I don't believe in necessarily dwelling in regret, but I do believe that regret is just a natural emotion. It's a natural response to seeing a missed opportunity. And if you don't look around our world and see a missed opportunity, I think you need to look again. You could drive up Park. At night is particularly colorful as people make their homes and beds on the sidewalk. Or you could turn on the news or flip through a newspaper. I mean, I think there's a good reason to have some doubts or questions about how we've done things. But like a lot of emotions, there's often a misunderstanding of what we do with that feeling. So it arises naturally. I do believe it should arise naturally. In fact, one of the hallmarks of certain deep and often criminal psychological disorders is the inability to feel regret. We think of sociopaths and psychopaths, and those are some of the very defining qualities. Say and do whatever you like, change your story, promise anything. Oh no, I'm talking about the election again, sorry. You can live without any kind of repercussion. And I don't know that that's really a human experience. But we'll get to the mystical view in just a moment. Where we need to start is just with the human, which is, I think it's okay. If you can sit quietly and find something in your life or in your world that you feel some sadness for, some sorrow for, some regret for, I would say that's perfectly normal. I'd say it's important. But then the question is, what do we do with it? And I think that's where a lot of us maybe make mistakes. That's where regret becomes less helpful. To dwell in regret, to feed regret, to rehearse the stories of regret. Well, then regret becomes, instead of an opportunity, it becomes a barrier. And I think that that's one of the first and most important things I want to share, is that regret is certainly natural. But when we see it in a spiritual way, we understand it as an opportunity, an opening, an indicator that something can change, that something wants to be looked at. And it's not a reason to shut down. The story that started to come to my mind, or the reference that started to come to my mind magically, and I blame Sandra really, because it was just the way she played that piece. It got me thinking about my dad. And my poor dad, he gets to be the subject of so many of my messages, but thank God for my dad. My dad, who was quite a bit older than me, grew up in a generation of delayed gratification, to say the least. So he worked very, very hard to have things that he never enjoyed. Like worked really hard never borrowed a penny, never took out a loan, never took out a mortgage, never leased a car. I mean, this guy worked for everything. And then, if he had his choice, he would have wrapped it all up in plastic and put it in the garage. But, you know, I have a brother and a sister and a mom, and, you know, we kind of did our best to destroy everything that he created. But that was his preoccupation, was preservation and protection. And as he came towards the end of his life, which was about 20 years ago, and he began his decline in March, we started to feel regret for him. Now, maybe he didn't feel it. But you know, there were some bottles of wine that he had bought. I mean, really special bottles of wine. I don't know anyone here who has a love of something to consume, and you buy that special bottle of whatever it is, scotch or what. So we're talking like probably hundreds of dollars worth of, you know, a single bottle that he kept and kept and kept and never tasted. And then when he died, we brought out some of these bottles, 3 bottles of wine, and this is not to be, exaggerating or flattering of him or self-aggrandizing, but probably we had 3 bottles of wine on the dining room table to celebrate his passing that probably totaled over $1,000 together. And you know what? We opened them, and what did we experience? Vinegar, sediment. They were all useless. I'd like to say that we saved it all and opened it, and we were just nourished by this gift that he gave us from beyond the grave. Oh, thank you for saving us this experience. But everybody lost in the end. Kind of a waste. So what does it have to do with regret? Well, what it has to do with regret is one of the first amazing opportunities that regret presents, which is to not live fully. And regret has shaped my life dramatically, not because I feel regret. In fact, I have lived vigorously in relationship to not feeling regret. Because of my dad's example, because of what I see in the world, I literally do my very best every day to experience the people that I love so fully that if I die tomorrow in my young 40s, as both my mom's parents did, that I could die happy. And they would have no doubt or mistake in knowing that I loved fully. And you know, there's parents on the playground who were talking about how much they play with their kids. I didn't share this yet with my wife because she'd probably be in shock and a little disturbed and say, "I told you." And one of them was saying, well, we set aside 10 minutes a night so that we can be together. And another one said, well, I set aside 20 to 30 minutes a week, just us together, to have that special time. I mean, we do other things, but we make sure we have a good, solid 20, 30 minutes where it's just us together. And I was like, oh shit, I think I'm up to like an hour a day. And that's when I'm really busy. And then you might think, well, gosh, you know, is that right for his development? And you know, what's the balance and all these things? And like, I don't know, but there's something inside me, and you could just call it a fear of regret. But it's important to me that every single day of his life, he knows everything that he needs to know. about me, about us, about my love for him. And the same is really true of all of our relationships, right? I mean, anyone we have a moment to interact with could be the last moment. And that could sound morbid to some of you, but I'd say that's pretty inspiring. And so if I have the chance to be generous to someone over lunch or share a laugh with someone in the parking lot, I'm going to take it. Because I don't want the memory to be, gosh, the last thing I said was. The last thing we felt was. And it's not about everything always being perfect. Because let's face it, we all have people in our lives who we would like to reach out to and have that beautiful moment with and have that laugh with, and maybe they aren't able to receive it. But I dare say the motivating force of regret is to ensure that at least we do the best we can. So that if they don't accept it, they're not ready to take it, they're not ready to feel it, that's okay. That's okay. So one of the great gifts of regret is inspiration, to inspire us to live fully. And that's not even just relationships with people, but places, things, creatures. Another thing about regret that's so powerful is that it's an incredible opportunity to observe where we have lost love for ourselves. It seems obvious to talk about wanting to make sure the people we love know it and all that kind of stuff. But when you feel regret, there's something implicitly self-denying or self-judging in that moment. I can't believe I didn't. What's wrong with me? Why didn't I see it? Or why didn't I get it? Or why didn't I feel it? Regret is an incredible indication light, like the little, light that constantly flashes on our dashboard of our car. Check engine. We can't get it to go off. And it's an indication to care more for yourself, to love more for yourself, to accept yourself more fully. And you could say, yeah, but it wasn't good what I did, or I really screwed up, or whatever it might have been. But you know what? If it's no longer occurring in the present, then the only thing you can do with it is learn from it and accept it and be inspired to move forward differently. And that is the other gift of regret. It's not just the inspiration to do well or live fully. It's not just the opportunity to love ourselves profoundly and completely, but it's also, I'd say quite obviously, the opportunity to learn. And we've all said that to someone, hey, you got to make mistakes. No one's going to get it perfect. No one's going to do it just right the first time or the 17th time or whatever it is. Regret is that feeling like we could get this back on track, like we could find another way to do it, like we could be more creative, we could be more whole, we could understand it in a way we haven't before. So we have, this is my list. Yes. We have loving the self and acceptance. We have learning to do things differently. We have inspiration, seeking the best, but there's a couple of good ones left. Regret is one of those wonderful spiritual teachers that returns us again and again and again to the first mystical tenet of life, which is let go. Let go, let go, let go. And just when you think you've let go, just when you think you've let go enough, and that feeling of clinging or pride or regret resurfaces, you let go again. Because ultimately it's pointing us towards the final and most mystical principle embedded in regret, which is that the more sharp and pointed the feeling is, the more we are in a state of separateness. Because really, regret is an indication that we have lost trust in the universe, in God, in spirit, whatever you call it. Life is a show that we are participating in, but but it's not our show. And we think that, and we comfort ourselves by feeling that, but there's a much bigger picture here. There's a much bigger story. There are forces and factors of all kinds within us and beyond us. So the best we can do is the best we can do. That's it. Show up each day. Invest fully in the moment. Stay present and aware. Affirm our unit of truth. Live for the highest good, and then let it go. Accept the best we can. Release our errors and frailties, and remember that if God is truly all, indivisible, not just invisible and visible, but really everything, then how does God regret God? How does Spirit regret Spirit? It's all in the design. It's all in the flow. And yes, some experiences of the design are less comfortable. And yes, some experiences of the flow are more overwhelming. But it's still all one thing. And so, regret reminds us to trust deeper and look for the truth of Spirit in absolutely all things, all moments, past, present, and future. Regret is born of the feeling that we are here to control things and get it right. And that belief is the first step to a life of misery. I'm going to teach a class on that next week. It's very popular. The principles are easy to apply. Anyway, so we come to an end and give thanks for the feeling of regret and cultivate the ability to let it be an indicator, a sign, like the changing of seasons, that something new can unfold, that we can learn, we can accept, we can love, we can let go, and we can be inspired not only to create something new and better, but actually to just love and accept things as they are. So I'm going to invite you to take a quick moment to close your eyes and think a little bit about, reflect a little bit about anything in your life that still feels like regret. An old energy of disappointment or despair. And just in this moment in your heart and your reflection, can you breathe into it? Can you forgive yourself? Can you see it as a part of life's grand drama and design? Can you let it go? And as we reflect on our regrets or disappointments, or perhaps even if they're not so pointed, if there are regrets for the world, what can we feel looking forward? What can we hope and pray and dream for a better world? How can we learn from the past and unfold a peace that all may share in?